right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tea Time Tuesday. All right, just excited to be here with you on this fourth Tuesday. So please remember to share and invite someone and let them know that we are live here on Facebook. Also, you can join us over on YouTube as well for Tea Time Tuesdays. Again, go ahead and share and invite. Hello, Tea Timers. Good evening. Monique, good evening, and welcome to Tea Time. All right, just excited to be here with all of you, and just excited to look forward to what will be released this evening for our Tea Time Tuesday. So please make sure to grab your Tea Time journal. Make sure you have your tea or your drink of choice this evening, and come on in as a community and let's do tea time together, where we pause, reset, and build resilience. All right, and so as you're sharing and inviting, come on in. Make sure to share, invite somebody if they've never been a part of Tea Time. Invite them to join us and get to know about our Tea Time community here and what we share on our Tea Time. All right, so we're gonna go right into Tea Time. All right, and so moving forward, we will go into our monthly observers with this Stress Awareness Month. All right, Stress Awareness Month. This month is Stress Awareness, and we just in the Renewal Center, we are observing this, making sure that we are aware of our stresses and being aware of stress awareness. And we know that stress, I'm sorry, we know and understand that when we understand and when we are aware, it brings power and it brings understanding to what we may be facing. So we're just thankful that we're observing Stress Awareness Month. Also, we're going to go ahead and talk about our tea of the week. All right, our tea of the week. Here is our beautiful tea of the week, which is it's called blue tea, but it's really called a different type of tea. It's called butterfly pea flower tea. All right, and this particular tea, also known as again as butterfly pea or blue pea tea, is an herbal infusion native of Asia. I'm sorry, South Asia. All right, and it has great benefits to this particular tea. It improves heart and brain health and provides an anti-diabetic and anti-cancer effects. So this is a really good tea. You can also mix it with other teas and make it. For me, I make it ice cold. I like it to be cold, and it's really refreshing. Have you ever had this tea before, Patrick?
I've never had that, but it's that season to have it, so I'm looking forward to trying it.
Yeah, it's absolutely great. It provides a lot of great health, healthy benefits from this particular tea. And so I'm looking forward to it. Speaking of tea, as you're joining us, what is your tea of choice? What is your drink that you're having this evening? Please share with us what you're having. If you having tea, if you're having water. I am actually having sparkling water today. Patrick, what are you having today?
Oh, I actually have mint tea.
Okay, mint tea. Mint tea. I love mint tea because it's calming. It's calming to our tummies. It's just a really good and really refreshing tea. So if you're out there, what are you having? All right.
Nick has black tea with lemon. Okay.
All right. All right. Thank you. That sounds good. I love iced tea. That sounds great. Again, I'm having my blackberry sparkling water. So I'm enjoying that. All right. Anybody else out there want to share their tea of the week before we go into our locating ourselves? All right. And as you're coming on, we're going to move into a time of locating ourselves. This is a time where we pause. This is a time where we just take a moment to center ourselves and allow ourselves to calm and kind of just get that moment from the day. Okay, I see Dr. Paul Brown is saying he's having water. All right. All right. Super green AT. All right. All right. Thank you so much for sharing that. So much. And so we're going to go into our time of locating ourselves. If you're new to Tea Time Tuesday, this is a time where we pause, we just relax, we're calm, and we just allow that calmness, to have us to unwind from the day. So we're going to go ahead and go to our locate ourselves in this moment. Just a few more moments. All right. Isn't that great when we're just taking a time to pause in that moment as we move into our tea time? So, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and Patrick is going to come on in with our tea time this evening. And I'm looking forward to our tea time as we move forward. Hi,
Thank you
Patrick.
so
How
much.
are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much. Always good to settle in and center ourselves after a long day. So I hope everyone is centered in. And thank you so much for opening us up, Hope. No, last week we were focused on the power of focus and intention. So I want to make sure that we continue with that theme this evening. So if you're out there, I want you to go ahead and hashtag intention or just put intention in the comments. Please make sure that you have your journal prepared. If you were with us last week, we're going to revisit some of the themes and renewal practices from last week. And again, we know tea time is about pause, about resetting, and about building resilience, as Hope said. And so that's one of the key reasons why we're here at the Renewal Center is about restoring our lives. And part of that is knowing how to provide renewal practices. So we want to welcome everyone into our space again this evening. And if you're out there, please let us know. Go ahead and tag some of your friends. Please share this on your pages if you won't mind, or share with others and let them know that we are here at Tea Time to focus on our renewal practices. So please go ahead and place intention in the comments because that is our focus for this evening for tea time. So welcome again. Good evening, good evening, good evening, Nicole. Good to see you. Thank you so much. Good greetings, Nichelle. Hello. Greetings, Vonnie. Hello. Good to see you as well. Grateful for everyone being on this evening. So let's take a pause and let's really focus on really fostering an atmosphere of resilience this evening regarding intention. So that's what we focused on last week. You want to focus again on that this week. So it's going to be somewhat of a recap, if that's okay, Hope. Somewhat
Of
of a
course.
recap. Right? So before we get started again, everyone, I want you to let me know when you think about the word intention, what comes to your mind? When you think about the word intention, what comes to your mind? Intention. Go ahead and tap intention in there. Ah, that's my Yanni. Hello. Good evening. Good to see you. Hello, Kimberly. Good evening. When you all think about intention, and we're revisiting last week, what comes to your mind when you think about the term intention? Because we're going to talk about the power of focus and how the power of focus is in intention. So we're going to take our time and ensure that we're going to really revisit that intention. All right, got intention coming in. Intention coming in. When you think about intention, let me know what that means to you. Hope any thoughts when you think about intention, so we can recap from some of those that weren't here last week. What comes to your mind and your thoughts and your heart when you think about the word intention?
Well, when I think about intention, even as you were saying it, I know you're going to go into it, but I thought about focus. I also thought about like the things that sometimes we want to do and then moving forward and doing them on purpose,
Mhm.
and that's what I think about when I says, when you say intention. So that's my view.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I think that's one of the key things that we are going to focus on. If we're going to be focused, part of the power of focus in our lives is about how deliberate are we, or what kind of intention do we have? And that's the important
Mhm.
part of it as well. Let's kind of read some of the comments as we recap. All right. Targeted goals. Monique says intention is targeted goals. You want to take the next two, Hope? Go ahead.
Sure, intention to me means being deliberate with my actions.
Oops, being delivered. Excuse me, I done spilled my tea. Goodness gracious.
No.
All right. Being deliberate with my actions. Being deliberate with my actions. All right. You go ahead and do the next one.
Intention, what I am planning to do.
What I am planning to do. All right.
Mhm.
So there's a planning for action and
Mhm.
intentionality. Excellent. Okay. So we've got some people saying targeted goals. We've got the deliberate in our actions, and then what we're planning to act. Anybody else out there, when you think about the word intention, what comes to your heart, what comes to your mind? And we're recapping from last week because we got a few renewal practices we want to focus on so we can really be deliberate about that. So, intention is about knowing what you want to do, and what you're working towards. Those are the three areas of intentionality. Intention is knowing what you want to do, and what you're working towards. So that really encompasses a lot of things. What do you want to receive in your life? What do you want to have in your life? What do you want to do in your life? And what will happen in terms of what you're working towards. So that's when we think about intention. All right. That's important. Dr. Paul Brown. Let's see here. Nicole says on purpose, with purpose. Thank you for sharing that. Dr. Paul says concentration.
Mm.
Concentration. Absolutely. These are all very important descriptions and definitions of intention. All right. The next thing that we talked about was intention requires clarity. I'm just going to recap really quickly from last week. So if you don't have a clear intention in your mind, you won't know where to focus. If you don't have clear intention in your mind, you won't know where to focus. So what does that mean? That means that if you don't have intentionality, then what ends up happening is you might just be whimsical, perhaps
Mhm.
haphazard in our decisions, being influenced many times by external forces or thoughts that really didn't originate with yourself. Perhaps we become reactionary, even Hope, when we don't have intentionality. Have you ever experienced that? I have before, where perhaps I was going through something and I wasn't as intentional as I needed to be. So intentionality helps you drive your focus, and
Mhm.
it causes you to be very deliberate and steady when there are other types of situations or circumstances externally that are happening to you. Um, how has intentionality helped you with focus, Hope?
Well, intentionality has helped me because it keeps me to be in aligned and kind of not all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
When I understand and know what I'm needing to do and moving forward in doing it. Intentionality also causes me to move forward in action, bringing those things that may be a part of my vision or things that I've thought about to do. I'm intentional about not just only thinking about them, but I'm intentional about moving forward in them with clarity. So it's just that part about it keeping me aligned, keeping me where I'm not all over the place. Because
Mm-hmm.
with intention, there has to be clarity. So I'm clear on how to move forward. And so that's why intention is important to me because it gives me the understanding of kind of like I don't want to say motivation, but just that aspect of just being right in the right alignment and not here and there, but have an intention to move forward with clarity.
Absolutely. That's good. That's good. We have a few more comments coming in. Kimberly says, living with focus. living with focus. Can you read the next two? Let's see what the audience is saying.
Sure. Miss Anita Andrews says, doing something with purpose in mind for that thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, Nick says intentionality helps with staying focused and on track.
All right. Thank you all for sharing. So we've got some precedents set, right? We've established the fact that the power of focus is with intention. We've established a foundation that intention is knowing what you want. Everybody get this down in your journals if you're taking notes. What I want. What do I want? What do I want to do? What am I working towards? And what the reason why we're working this out from a tea time perspective as a renewal practice is so that we can continue to evolve and expand. Many people are, perhaps you might be in transition right now where you have to make some decisions. Intention will be incredibly helpful for you in this moment. Also, it's going to help you with clarity because you have a particular deliberate intention in mind. We also honed in on when we're intention, we begin to draw out specific events and circumstances begin to be drawn to us when we're deliberate and when we have intention. So it's important that we focus in on when we have that deliberate level of intention because we're focused and we're spending attention on something, then events and circumstances begin to be drawn to where our intention is. All right. You ever notice when you are deliberately focused on something, it seems like everything else is drawn to that. And the reason why it is because you have a specific intention and it causes our environments and atmospheres to really support and sustain us in that intentionality. All right. So it's important that we're able to focus on that. All right. So I want to hone in particularly on a few areas that we asked last week that I think will be very helpful. We talked about, for instance, personality habits that no longer serve you and what do you want to embody and which areas do you wish to grow? So for those of you that weren't with us last week, I want you to think about these questions as you're preparing yourself, because I have 10 areas we're going to focus on this evening that we need to be deliberately focused on, Hope. So we're going to concentrate on that as part of our renewal practices this evening. And I want to also hone in that the key to intentional living is living with the end in mind. Everybody get that down. Living with the end in mind. That's the key to intentional living. What is your end game? Everybody put in the comments, what is my end game? What is my end game? What do I really want to see? What's the end result of my intentionality? That's part of our renewal practice this evening, is thinking about what my end game is. And when I think about being intentional and living with the end in mind, that means I've set in motion in my thoughts, in my will, what's the end in mind. I want you to really think about the end game. What is my end game? Now, Hope, let's do a little coaching activity if you don't mind.
Okay.
I want you to think about something that you want to see growth in right now. You got it in your head?
Yeah, it's a few things.
I want you to think about that. If you got it there, then you don't have to answer it now verbally, but I want you to consider this. What's your end game in that area of growth? What is your end game in your area of growth? So you find out, what do I want to accomplish? What's an area that I want to evolve and grow in and expand in? Because attention is not about anybody else but you. It's not about, well, others need to do this. It's about what I need, what I want to do, and what am I working toward. So if I'm asking you the question, what do you want to evolve in, and you have several different things you're working on, please feel free to share one. As far as when you say your end game, what's the end game that you have with one of those areas that you're working towards?
For me, I would say a few things. What I would like to share is
I know something in the moment.
Yeah. Just with my job and in game on that, my career, I should say, not my job, but I say career.
Okay.
And the end game would be to see myself fully grown out even more than where I am now. That's the end game. The end
Okay.
game is to be in a better mindset, a better understanding, a better growth and development and leadership aspect in the end game than where I am now,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. And I would
Oh.
love to dig more into that and say, well, what does that growth look like? What does that, and keep powerful of a beautiful question really opens up more for us. And
Yeah.
so I want everybody to think about it. What is my end game? Because we started out talking about what do I want? What do I want to do? What am I working towards? And again, being intentional living again goes back to what? Living with the end in mind. It might even be something as briefly as, for instance, I needed to have a very difficult conversation about something. So I had to be deliberate today and say, I'm going to be intentional about my focus in my conversation, my poise, my demeanor. And so with that intentionality, the result came. Now that was for a conversation. Now yours is about your career and your professional growth. Either way, tea timers, when we are intentional, it's about what's the end game, or we're living with the end in mind. So I want you to think about that as it relates to, again, 3 areas of intention. What do you want? What do you want to do? What are you working towards? And thinking and asking the next question, which relates to this about living with the end in mind. We need to consider, what is my end game? If you're just coming on, please ask the question, what's my end game? What is my end game? Ask yourself that question, place that in there, because if that is, then you need to start it's the next steps would be to start thinking about how to maintain focus on that intention. Maintain that intention. Okay, it's not about doing more, Hope, or even nailing perfection.
Yes, I
It's
agree.
not about doing more or nailing perfection at all. So for those of you that are out there that like that, I got to do everything right. Being intentional is not about nailing perfectionism. It is about what? What does a bullet point say? Do the things that matter the
The
most.
most.
Do the things that matter the most. Not about doing more and nailing perfection, whatever perfection means, right? So we
Mhm.
want to be very mindful that we think about what is our end game, even in the smallest things that we see. All right. What is my end game? Yes. What is my end game? All right. Ask yourselves, if you're coming on, just type it in. What is my end game? If you're writing in your journal, write out, what is my end game? Think about it. If you got some moves to make, even in how you use your time or areas that you want to expand in, ask yourself the question this evening, what is my end game? And then what we're going to do after that, Hope, is
Mm,
we do a renewal practice and we locate ourselves or
mm,
center ourselves on what that end game is.
mhm.
So today's renewal practice, T timers, is we're going to focus on 10 areas. 10 areas to be intentional about. So I'm going to go through each of these 10 areas, and I want us to think about it, because we're focused to value on the external more than the internal, aren't
Yes.
we? Right? Or being busyness is equated to being success. If I'm just busy, I got things externally together, then we think that that's really productivity. And when you're intentional, it brings more awareness to your life, your
Yes.
daily life. How is when Hope, when you've been intentional? I'm going to ask the audience this too. When you've been intentional, how did that bring awareness to your life? What did it do to you when you began to be more deliberate and intentional? Hope, and
It
also to the teachers. Mm-hmm.
it began to bring forth the things that I want to see.
Mm-hmm.
You said before, it's about, what I want to see and what I'm looking for. And so having that intention brings forth those things in a tangible way that I want to see because I'm moving forward in attention.
Mm-hmm.
And also it gives me the opportunity to have the room and understanding of being able to grow. And so I'm able to see growth through my intention. I'm able to see that I'm aware of some things that maybe, I wasn't aware of before. And so with intention, it allows me to see, as many comments to say, the purpose or see, it's able to see things being able to be manifested in
Mm-hmm.
intention, because when you keep moving forward in intention and focus and clarity, then you get to the what that end game where you're able to see what you've been living out as far as living with that end game mindset. But in order to get to the end game, there has to be an intention, there has to be a focus, there has to be clarity. And so
Absolutely.
that's what it. I'm speaking for myself. That's what it does for me.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And again, the principle behind this is that when we have an intentional life, then what that does is it produces awareness because we're intentional about what I want. And you said earlier, you wanted to see some growth in a particular professional area. My intention was, okay, there's a conversation. Here's how I need to show up. My end game, I already had the intention going in. That helped me become aware of what was going on internally, what was going on inside,
Mhm.
maybe some narratives, some perspectives, some feelings, some
Mhm.
emotions, some thought processes. I was able
Mhm.
to have those things monitored and under control because I was very deliberate. All right. So again, what is my end game is the question that I want everyone to write down and consider. Yes, focus intention brings desired results. Absolutely. Two things
Mhm.
about when we are in intention: conscious choices and aligned actions. Conscious choices,
Mhm.
we're making conscious choices and aligned actions when
Mhm.
we're intentional. So it's not just happenstance. When I'm deliberate about how I'm going to show up, when I'm deliberate about what I want to do, what I'm working towards, then I'm making conscious choices and aligned actions. That's the emphasis of it. All right. So again, I want everybody to think about that as you're preparing yourself for whatever area that you want to be very intentional about. Monique says that intention causes you to align yourself towards the area of focus you're working on. Absolutely. All
Mhm.
right. We're going to really concentrate on that. And we've got 10 areas we're going to focus on. So let's take our time with this for our renewal practices this evening. Everybody ready? Go ahead and hashtag, place in the comments, intention, intention, intention. Here we go. All right. So what, when you think about intentionality, you want to be intentional about your words and action. We're going to start with words and action. Words and action. Well, think about the impact of your actions on other people and think about the impact of your words on other people. Now, when we think about words and actions, Hope, we're talking about not only public words, but private words. What we say about ourselves and others in our minds. Those are
Mhm.
still words. Even though you didn't say them out loud, they came out. Okay? We made a vow. Mm. So it's important that we think about what are we actually saying, not only publicly, but privately. Being intentional about my words and my actions. I want you to think about that. Are we being deliberate about words and actions? You've got a conversation you need to have, be intentional. I'm being intentional about being peaceful. I'm being intentional about walking in humility. I'm being intentional about being
Mhm.
I'm being intentional about having bold words or a demeanor of focus. So when there's an intentionality about our words and actions, what that helps us become better people. We show up differently, not only just what we say publicly, but the words we also speak privately,
Yes.
right? Intention, intention. Where are we, everyone, in terms of our words and our action? I want you to think about that in your conversations. What are some of the words that you say? All right, good evening. Good evening, everyone. Thanks, everybody, for coming on this evening. So I hope that's the first thing. We got 10 areas we're going to focus on. First one we covered already is being intentional about our what? Our words
A
and our
word.
actions.
Mhm.
Mhm. Number two, be intentional about your money and resources. Money and resources. Money and resources. Now, this is important. All right, because where our treasure is where our heart's going to be. You want to find out what people's intention is? Just check how they spend. We check how we spend, we find out where our intention is. Just look at what you spend in terms of time and resources. So that means being intentional about your money, your resources, stewardship. I like to use the word sow, save, and spend. Either you're spending money, saving money, or you're sowing money, which would be investing as well. So think about this from a perspective. Are we deliberate? Are we intentional about our resources? That's another area of being intentional. Okay? Either we're spending, we're saving, we're sowing, we're securing, right? Those are important that we're thinking about it from that perspective. So let's be deliberate. What moves do you need to make about your resources and being intentional about it? And what does that mean again? Conscious choices and aligned actions. So every time we think about this from this perspective, I want you to consider, what are my conscious choices about my words? What are my conscious choices about my actions? What are my conscious choices about my money or my resources that I have? All right. Conscious choices and aligned actions is really going to be the measure of how we show up with intention. Any thoughts on that? These are our first two. Any thoughts? Words and actions?
Oh, I'm taking all that in, what you stated about our intentions, like as far as our money and our resources, which is very big for me. And so that's important because I think, you know, like when we think about intention, we're thinking about purpose and different things, but we have to, figure in that how we spend and what we're spending things on, that's all a part of it as well. Like you said, are you saving? Or, what's going on with your resources? And that's very good. I like the fact that you said you can see the attention by what you're spending, what you're spending your resources on. And so I felt a little like, oh, because I was thinking about, shopping and all those things, even though my other resources go to things that are needed. But I also realized too, Patrick, that there's a time and place for all different types of things. And intention as far as financial means you have to have some financial order of how you're breaking down and what you're spending your resources on. Now, when you're intentional, for me, I have everything lined up on everything, all the way down to even food. Okay. I'm very intentional on that particular budget. Now, if I wasn't, for me, I have to have that set up. I have to I get all the way down to the penny, the nickel. To see where things are going, and also evaluating if I'm out of the intention of my goal, getting things back in a line and order again. So just keeping track of my intent, even in my financial, dealing with finances and how I'm spending and what I'm spending things on.
Very good. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. And I think this is important because, this is going to also cause all of us to think about, again, intentionality is about our end game. So that means we have to ask the question, what is my end game in my actions? What is my end game in my money and resources? All about the end game when we're thinking about being intentional with my living. And it makes us break everything down, and we become answerable, responsible, and accountable for the intentional outcome. All right. Number 3, be intentional with your overall growth. Okay, that increases your success rate. Being intentional about your priorities you set and the actions you take towards your goals. Always having that growth mentality, that growth, overall growth. That also includes anything that includes your learning. Are you being exposed? Are you intentional about obtaining new information? Being intentional about new learning and new perspectives. What have you read lately? I think today is World Book Day, right? What have you read that's something you've never read before, or something you've put on the shelf that you need to reread and say, I'm going to be intentional for the next 30 days. I'm going to review this particular area, being intentional about my words and my actions, my money, my resources, and my overall growth. All right, these are important. So I think this is critical that we're able to do that. All right, got a few comments coming on out here. Let's look at what's taking place here. I'm making a mind shift to now be intentional about conscious choices and aligned actions. All right, Hope, I'm gonna let you read the next one. This is a good one.
Made a spreadsheet for expenses. Realized I was giving Amazon too much money.
There you go. You like that one? So,
Yeah.
all right, being deliberate, being intentional.
Yes.
All
Yes.
right. And what does that do? Conscious choices, aligned actions. And I'm not saying that you got to do all 10, but I think what this does is it helps us with how are we spending our time and our energy and our availability in specific areas. All right. So that's important that we're able to do that, everyone. All right, let's go to the next one here. So we've got being intentional in your words and actions, being intentional in your money and resources, being intentional about your overall growth. What's the next one? Taking opportunities. Taking opportunities. Make it a priority to go out and seek out opportunities to unfold and develop yourself. Similar to overall growth. But this is about seeing an opportunity and seizing it and not allowing insecurities or inadequacies to block you from taking an opportunity. So being intentional. And again, what's the question about intentional living? What is your end game?
Right.
What is my end game in my growth? What is my end game in taking opportunities?
Yeah.
It's something else we want to be intentional about. We're talking about, again, the power of focus is intention. What else do we have here? Let's go to the next one. What am I being intentional about? Your setting personal boundaries. Setting personal boundaries. I want everybody to write this down. Be clear about what I will accept. I'm going to be clear about what I'm going to accept in my life, what I'm going to be open to. All right. Right now, while I'm finishing a dissertation in my doctoral program, one of the most significant boundaries, Hope, that I have is setting around my time commitment to work versus personal projects. So I have to start thinking about time commitments. And so every now and then I have to recalibrate and say, Patrick, are you being intentional about certain opportunities, or personal boundaries in this particular time period? So that's important as well. So any thoughts? What thoughts do you have, Hope, about just any of the ones we've covered so far?
I mean, these are all great. I like the breakdown that you have, because I like it because you're not saying being intentional, but you're actually giving a breakdown on things to be intentional about and things that can help us to navigate moving forward, when we're being intentional. Some things that we may overlook because sometimes, like, our minds may think being intentional is just about a certain thing, but what you're doing is you're saying the whole aspect of who we are as an individual and the different areas of our lives. So I just really can appreciate that breakdown. That'll help us be more intentional and have more clarity in the particular areas that you've discussed and the other ones as well.
Thank you for sharing that. Tea Timers, please share with us your thoughts so far on these areas that we've covered. We've got 10 areas. We've covered about 5 or 6 or so already. And again, remember to ask yourself the question about these areas. What kind of person do you want to be in your work? You want to think about, what mindset would you love to embody? These are recaps from last week. But our emphasis this evening is about what is my end game? Because the intentional living is about living with the end in mind. And it is about doing things that matter most. It's not about just doing a whole bunch of things just to do them and to nail perfection, but do the things that matter most by asking yourself the question, what is my end game in these areas? So we're going to recap again as a renewal practice. What is my end game in my words and actions? That means not only my public words, but my private words, what I'm saying about myself and what am I saying about other people? What am I saying about situations? Being intentional about my words and actions, about my money and resources, about my overall growth, about taking opportunities, about setting personal boundaries, which is about what will I accept? Okay, very important. Let's read this one if you can. Go ahead and read this for Renita. Hey, Renita.
Sure. I appreciate how being intentional encourages me to be proactive.
I think she was
And
still,
okay,
still
yeah.
typing out.
Oh, all right. And it says it serves as a personal accountability measure. Thank you so much for sharing.
So intentional, proactive. Good. Thank you for sharing that. All right. And again, we're talking about how the power of focus is with intention. So important that we're able to do that. All right. Let's see here. Another one. Learning, expanding my sphere of intentionality. Okay. All right. Good application. All right. Let's keep going forward with our focus here on intention. All right. Next thing, we're going to be intentional about your relationships, because the people you surround yourself will have a huge impact on your life. I always like to say relationships are like mathematics. Either people add, multiply, subtract, or divide, right?
Yeah.
So am I adding and multiplying, or am I subtracting or dividing? It all depends on how I show up and if I'm being intentional. I'm intentional that I'm going to add to this person's life. I'm going to add peace. I'm going to add edification. I'm going to build them up. I'm going to add trust. I'm going to multiply blessings and listening or empathy and compassion. You know, I'm not going to divide people's focus. I'm not going to subtract from other people's piece of. You see where I'm going with that? And we got to be intentional about how we're going to add and multiply other people's lives. So again, we want to think about when we think about intentional, being intentional about your relationships now. Very deliberate, because they will positively contribute to your life, and you're also positively, right, contributing to somebody else's life. Michelle says here, thought, intentionality in these key areas prevents us from wasting time like a hamster on a wheel. Yes, it does. You want to be very intentional, folks, okay? Very important that we do that. What else do we have here, Hope? We're going to be intentional about your health.
Yes, yes.
Being intentional about your health. All right. So that means, even though we're talking about holistically, all right? Mental, emotional, physical, health in all aspects, being well in various dimensions of our lives.
Yes.
We want to be focused on that, making sure we're deliberate about our health. Intentional. I want everyone out there from a tea time perspective, when you think about these areas that we're thinking about today in terms of intentionality, what do you want to specifically be intentional about that's different and unique? That's different. Think about what you want to do, what you want, and what you're working towards. Think about those questions in your words and actions. What in your words and actions are you working on or going to be intentional about? Maybe you have to be intentional in your money and resources. Maybe you need to be intentional in your overall growth. Maybe you need to be intentional about taking opportunities, or you have personal boundaries. Maybe you say yes to too many things. You say yes. Again, being intentional is about you. It's not about other people. It's about you, your relationships, your personal boundaries, your taking opportunities, and your health. When's the last time you had a check-in in all different areas of your health?
Wow, it's good.
I think this is important renewal practice. What do you think?
Absolutely. Uh, it's definitely important because it can impact every other area of our life and in our moving forward. So I definitely agree. So yes, that's something that's very important, and I'm glad that you have brought that up and that it's there. Just as a little nudge and a reminder, also to if we're not, to make sure that we are and to be more intentional about doing so.
Yeah,
Physical, mental, and emotional health.
absolutely. And again, let's ask the question, Hope. What is your end game in your health? And be
Mm-hmm.
very specific about
Mm-hmm. Mm.
what is my
Yeah.
end game in my mental health? What is my end game in my responses? What is my end game in a particular area that I know I need to be intentional about? So we want
Mm-hmm.
to be less generic and be more specific with our intentionality. Would you agree with that?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Very good. Thank you for sharing that. Wanted to get your thoughts on that. All right, Nichelle says, I'm going to go ahead and read this.
Sure. I've been working on personal boundaries for about 4 years now, and I've gotten pretty good at saying no. Still have some challenges from time to time, but when I respond with intention, it protects me.
All right. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
AA says, especially health. We may feel well, but diseases are subtle and cause damage before we feel unwell. So we want to be deliberate in even our physical health. We want to be
Mm-hmm.
deliberate in our mental health. We want to be deliberate in our spiritual. There's a lot of different dimensions of health that we want to be very specific in. So the question on the table now, Hope, when we think about intentions and the intentionality of these areas is what is my end game in my words and actions? What is my end game in my money and resources? What is my end game in my overall
Mm-hmm.
health? We go through all these different areas and ask ourselves, and again, the key intentional living is living with the end in mind. So we're going to ask ourselves, what is my end game in my time?
Mm-hmm.
Time is not an infinite resource.
Right.
I know some of us think that we do. Okay. So
Right.
time again is not unlimited resource, excuse me. So we want to be mindful of how we're doing that in terms of our time management. It's a limited resource. So, let's be more aware how we're investing our time, how we're using our time, how we're
Yes.
spending our time. And the more deliberate you are about your time,
Mhm.
the more you're focused on measuring your time investments.
Right.
And that relates to people, places, things.
Mm-hmm.
What is your end game in your time? What is your end game or what's being intentional about your work? About your work.
Mm-hmm.
We spend a considerable amount of time, Hope, in our lives at work.
Yes. Mm.
So we got to enjoy the work we do, be
Yes.
fulfilled in those areas.
Mm-hmm.
So if we say, well, this is what's happening in my career or this is happening in my job, maybe it means let me be intentional about those things in my field that do bring me
Mm-hmm.
joy,
Yes.
that do bring fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
And I hone in on those things that are positive. I become
Mm.
intentional about those things that are productive,
Yes.
intentional about the progress that I'm making.
Mm.
Otherwise, we can always look at the negative and look at and magnify it. And whatever we
Mm-hmm.
magnify is what we're going to dispense. So
Mm-hmm.
it's important that we are very deliberate and intentional about the work that we do.
Mm.
What are your thoughts on that as it relates to being intentional about the work we do?
That is as far as intention on the work we do, it's very important. I mean, if there's no intention with the work, then kind of like, what are you doing? It's there has to be intention behind what you do, no matter if you have your own business, if you have your own, your author, or you working, regular job, whatever you do, in every area where you're working, where you're putting your hands to something. there should be intention, because intention will be the driving force when you don't feel like doing it in the natural. That's the intention will be the driving force. So it's not just necessarily about a day where I may, I enjoy what I do for work. But I'll be
Mhm.
honest, some days it's a bit more pressing. Some days things are going on. So if it's not for that intention being there,
Mhm.
the intention being intentional with what I do and where I work, it gives me that push and that drive to move forward. Because what again, I understand the end game of what I'm doing. And so because I understand the end game, I can't go by always by what I feel in that moment in that day. But what's pushing me is that intention to keep moving forward because I understand the end game. So it's good to have intention when it involves the work that we do, the things that we do, our creativity, because sometimes things happen and you don't actually feel like it. But when you're intentional, it goes beyond the feeling and it pushes you toward the purpose, and you have clarity to keep moving forward.
Absolutely. And I want to encourage everyone when you think about, intentional about your work, concentrate and be intentional about aspects of your job that you love, that bring you
Mm-hmm,
fulfillment. You may say, well, oh, it's really tough right now. Then
mm-hmm,
before you even head out and go up to your job, your project, whatever you're working on, and say, I'm going to be intentional. What is my end game in my job today? What is my end game in the work that I'm doing? What is my end game in this project that I'm working on? And start really thinking about being intentional. What's my end game? And that will cause the energy of your life to concentrate on that. Your attention, your drive, all those thoughts, those things become even more focused. And that's what you begin to release in your life by
wow.
being very intentional. All right. So that
Wow.
is important. Very important. Okay. Bonnie says, for me, lack of intention leads to procrastination. Help. All right. But you
Mhm.
know what? It's important, Pastor Bonnie. Right now, what you're doing is you are being even more intentional. Good. Thank you for sharing it. Kimberly says, I'm being intentional how I show up at work, such as positive attitude, displaying servant leadership, and working towards excellence. Thank you for sharing, everyone.
Mhm.
Okay, let's go to one more thing here. Being intentional about giving back.
Wow, that's good.
That's our last point for today. Being intentional about giving back, or somebody may say giving forward, whatever semantics you want to use. All right. Instead of taking from people, I'm giving back to people.
Mm. Wow.
Giving back, volunteering,
Mm.
serving,
Mm.
philanthropy, humanitarian.
Mhm.
What am I doing to add, to build, to strengthen, to give back to people? What that does
Mhm.
is it helps you stay focused on serving and
Mhm.
service as an ethic in your life,
Mhm.
concentrating on values that we're better together when we begin to look outside of ourselves as a area of being intentional. So now we
Mhm.
ask the question, Ho, what is my end game on giving back?
Mhm.
So I want to take us a few minutes before we close out our tea time this evening. We're almost at time here. And I want you to think about from our renewal practices, everyone, what is your end game in these 10 areas? What is your end game in your giving back? What is my end game in my work? And be very specific, even if it's challenging. Think about I'm going to be intentional, which is conscious choices and aligned actions about my time, my health, my relationship, my setting personal boundaries, my taking opportunities, my overall growth, my money and resources, and my words and actions.
Mhm.
And
Mm.
again, it's not about doing more or to nail perfection, but to do the
Yes.
things that matter most because it is about living with the end in mind.
Mhm. Living with
All
it.
right,
That's good.
timers. So, I want everybody, please, if you will, uh, place in the comments what are your takeaways today? What is new? What are you going to do differently? What are you going to be intentional about specifically? I want you to really think about that. Let's locate ourselves in this area because we want to be paused. We want to be calm. We want to really think about this. How are you prioritizing your learning? How are you going to be intentional with your time or the work that you're doing, or even about giving back? I want you to think about not just external, but also internal, and shut off the autopilot mode. I'm just coasting here. I'm going to be very deliberate and intentional about what I do, how I show up, and what I'm concentrating on. And it may not be all 10. It might be just one area. Please feel free to place that in the comments. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are, what your takeaway as a Tea Time community, because these are renewal practices that we want to focus on, and we're going to bring those up. All right. So I want to just really thank everyone for being on today. And I also want to invite you, if you're in the Charlotte Concord area, please stop by the Renewal Center. And it's about hospitality here at the Renewal Center. And so I'm actually here right now in one of our rooms, and we have a space for creativity. We have a space for action and planning, complimentary Wi-Fi. Please feel free to stop by and have tea and coffee on us. It's about reflection. It's about growth. It's about expansion. And so I just want to give everyone an opportunity. If Tea Time has been of value to you, I want you to really think about and consider downloading our mobile app as well. Make sure that you download the mobile app. You can have access to all of our digital content, our audio, our visual, our reforming culture, all our other announcements that we will talk about this evening and share with you here briefly. And then I also like to consider if you join us in our Spring Giving Challenge and consider donating to the Renewal Center to help sustain our operational budget with the programming that we have here at the Renewal Center, with whether it's Tea Time Tuesday, the actual learning and creative space, the working space here, our operations. These are the different ways you can donate to the Renewal Center. And I want to say thank you for considering us and being a part of the Renewal Center through our website. You can go to renewalcenters.com/give. You can also text Renewal Center 888-364-4483. We have PayPal and Zelle, which is the Renewal Center 2020@gmail.com. We have CashApp, which is Cash Renewal Center, and then Venmo as well, which is @Renewal Center. Those are the digital ways you can actually give this evening. And then also, if you want to mail a check or money order, our P.O. Box is 1381 Concord, North Carolina, 28026. So I just want to give you that opportunity and like to invite you to support the Renewal Center and all of our focus on hospitality, renewal practices, and also encourage you and remind you to please download our mobile app as well. All right, let's go back to some of our comments. What are some of your takeaways? Let's go ahead and read these here. All right, Hope, you want to go ahead and start on this one?
Sure. I'm going to list all 10 areas and make 2 columns under each one. What are my conscious choices in the area? And 2, what my aligned actions for each goal? Thank you. I'm excited for this journey.
You are welcome. All right. This one here.
Takeaway: be intentional with my time, which will require me to plan out my days more efficiently. Nichelle, thank you for sharing.
All right. Anybody else? Please share your takeaways. Before we close out for this evening, please feel free to continue to share your comments. And I hope I'm going to bring up the announcements. I know we already shared some of them, but I want to just bring that back up for our Tea Time community. I want to thank everyone for this. So I'm going to go ahead and bring out if you can maybe voice over all of our comments. Or excuse me, announcements, excuse me.
Okay.
All right.
All right, we love for you to, again, continue to join us on our Tea Time Tuesday, every first, second, and third Tuesdays at 12, and our fourth Tuesday, which is today at 7 p.m. Invite someone to join us. Then we have our Sunday New You Digital Discipleship, which is live Zoom every Sunday. Registration information is located on our Renewal Center page. Also, Reforming Culture, which is tomorrow. We have been teaching on the mind of Christ. Please join us Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. you'd like to register, that is on our page as well. Reformative prayer every fifth Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Please join us for a time of reformative prayer as well. All right. Then we have our grief recovery program. We invite you, if you know anyone that's dealing with grief or have some questions about grief recovery, please contact us at the Renewal Center. And please remember to download our mobile app to stay up to date on all of our information, announcements, and everything that you see here tonight. You can do that with the mobile app as well. Then we have our Women at the Well series, which is led by Pastor Carmela, which is the first Saturday of each month on site and digital as well. Here again are the ways that you can connect and give to the vision of the Renewal Center. We have the digital platform for you to be able to give right from your phone, right through your favorite app, CashApp or PayPal, or you can mail a check, whatever one you choose to do. We thank you in advance for connecting with the Renewal Center and the vision of the Renewal Center, which is hospitality. So again, if you're ever in the area, please make sure to drop by the Renewal Center for a cup of coffee, conversation. If you need to work or need some peace, we look forward to having you drop by the Renewal Center as well.
All right. We got a few. Thank you again, Hope, for covering our announcements. We have a few more comments and takeaways we can just share. Right ahead.
All right. Adria says, definitely being intentional about my time. Thank you so much for sharing that. Kimberly says, being intentional about my internal dialogue and boundaries. All right. Very good.
I think this has been a rich
Yes.
focus. I plan on being very intentional about mindset for the rest of my week, being intentional about my mindset, about specific things. I'm in different transitions, so it's important that I'm able to do that. Oh, we got another one. Mildred is saying, being intentional on following through on certain projects to get away from procrastination. Thank you for sharing. All right. Well, this has been a rich focus for this evening, and we've been covering intention for the last two Tea Time Tuesdays. So looking forward to the beginning of May here soon. And as we concentrate on some other renewal practice here. So we'll see everybody the first Tuesday in May. And so before we head out, I just want to give everybody an opportunity to just do another locate yourself exercise, and that will end our renewal practices for this evening. Find a space of calm. This is a wonderful evening. If you're watching the replay, welcome and thank you for participating. And let's just take a moment, if you can, just to pause, to reset, and build our resilience for just like 30 seconds, 60 seconds, refresh ourselves. And want to thank everyone and have a very, very good evening. And we'll see you next time. And as we say, I am Renewal.
Renewal. Take care of each other.